I say, yo, welcome to the BBW show, you feel me? We talk battle rap, basketball, and wrestling. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. The topic for today is WWE on A&E, excuse me, WWE on A&E Biography. Now, this is what, the third season that they doing this Legend special, you feel me? I've liked the first 3 seasons, I'm not gonna lie. The first 2 seasons, I should say. Now I feel like we get to the part where we doing repeats, you feel me? I think in season 2 they did one on D-Generation X. Now this season they doing one on China. Almost the same thing. I think last year or the first season they did one on Hulk Hogan or Scott Hall. Now we got one on the NWO. Pretty much the same thing, you feel me? No, they did one on Goldberg. Now the NWO. Pretty much the same thing, you feel me? They did one on Sting. Now one on the NWO. Pretty much the same thing, you feel me? So I like them, but I feel like they need to come up with new people or stop or get out that same space, you feel me? They staying in the 90s, that's for one. They only doing stuff that was in the 90s. I get it, that was the hottest time in wrestling, but they can do other stuff, bro. They can do one on Trish Stratus. They can do one on somebody else, bro. But get out the 90s, you feel me? But in this document, they talked about Hulk Hogan jumping ship in 1994. How WCW was in the doldrums at that point. They was doing terrible. They was barely selling out. They talked about that. They talked about Eric Bischoff getting the head of power. They talked about Hall and Nash jumping ship in 1996. They talked about the curtain call. All the stuff that they talked about, we knew already. Honestly, we knew already. It was Eric Bischoff, 83 Weeks podcast. Kevin Nash got his own podcast. Vince Russo. So it's like everybody that was involved in this has already talked about it before. They talked about how the third man was gonna be Sting. I don't think I heard that before. How the third man was supposed to be Sting, but then Hulk Hogan seen how over the NWO was getting, and he wanted to be a part of it. They talked about that. Six joining Nitro. You feel me? X-Pac was gonna get in trouble from the curtain call. Even though he wasn't there, he was still gonna get in trouble. So he decided to go take WCW money. And he added a lot to the NWO, I'm not gonna lie. The NWO wouldn't have worked without Hulk Hogan, obviously. Hall and Nash, obviously. And X-Pac. I feel like it would have worked without Eric Bischoff. The NWO didn't need Eric Bischoff to work, in my opinion. I feel like it still could have worked without him. What else they talk about? They talked about Sting character change, how he went from the white meat babyface to being the Crow Sting. They talked about that. They talked about Dennis Rodman coming over. Around the same time Mike Tyson... No, this was before. Before Mike Tyson went to WWE with Stone Cold, they had Dennis Rodman in WCW. That was dope. They talked about Starrcade 1998. Wow. This was big. No, 97. Starrcade 97. This was big. This is very controversial. Very controversial. I heard myself on Eric Bischoff podcast 83 Weeks. He said the reason why he didn't put the belt on Sting was because Sting looked out of shape and he didn't have a tan. That's what he said on his own podcast. A few years later, they do this documentary. Now he's saying that they didn't put the belt on him because Hulk Hogan had creative differences. You feel me? Creative control, I should say. Which I believe that. I believe Hulk Hogan had creative control. But now they trying to switch up the point, and now they trying to put the blame on Hulk Hogan. You feel me? You can't believe nothing Hulk Hogan says anyway. So Hulk Hogan say that Sting was supposed to kick out. Eric Bischoff say it was supposed to be a fast count. Either way, that was the dumbest decision in WCW history. Probably wrestling history. The storyline build for the payoff is like, the storyline was a 10. That's one of the best storylines ever. Sting, Crow Sting. But the execution is a 0. That shit fell flat as hell, you feel me? Worst payoff ever in wrestling. Eric Bischoff even said that, you feel me? That's one of the worst things about WCW. They always had shitty finishes. Always. Always had shitty finishes. Always. They talked about the NWO versus the Wolfpack. How it was just something to do. You feel me? They talked about the finger poke of doom in 1999. Another shitty decision. What was it? 2 years later. 2 years later, WCW still around, still doing good in 1999. They not doing raw numbers, but they still doing good. They pull a finger poke of doom. The worst wrestling move in history. Guys make jokes about the finger poke of doom now. You feel me? Worst shit ever. Hulk Hogan said he wished he was never a part of it. Now he says that. He did not say that back then. Because it benefited Hulk Hogan. He the one that won the world title. They talked about... This was funny to me. Hulk Hogan called Eric Bischoff a mark for Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. Some people would call Eric Bischoff a mark for Hulk Hogan. You feel me? Some people call them marks for each other. Honestly, the biggest wrestling couple ever is Stephanie and Triple H, and then it's Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff. They've been married since 1994, honestly. Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff has been together at the hip since 1994. They went to TNA and ran that company to the doldrums, killed that company. They killed WCW, you feel me? They was never on screen together in WWE. That shows you a lot. We never got Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan. We never got that reunion in the early 2000s. I wonder why. Because that shit would have killed the company. So that was key. They talked about Hulk Hogan WWE run, how the NWA came over, and then they only cared about Hulk Hogan. The crowd only cared about Hulk Hogan. They didn't talk about Booker T joining the NWO in the early 2000s. They didn't talk about Shawn Michaels joining the NWO in 2000s. They didn't talk about Scott Hall drug problem like that. You feel me? They left out a lot. They definitely left out a lot. It was definitely a lot of stuff they didn't talk about in here that was key, I felt like. But they ended it talking about Scott Hall passing. And that was very sad. You feel me? Very, very sad. Scott Hall passing was what? A year ago? Probably 2 years ago now? That shit still feel like it was yesterday. Gangster. That shit still feel like it was yesterday. Scott Hall passed away. This was crazy, bro. But the NWO, in all honesty, is probably the greatest faction of all time. When you look at their impact, even though it's like a 3-year run, from 1996 till 1999, a 3-year run, their impact was crazy. You still see NWO shirts now in 2023. That's crazy. You still see people doing an NW hand sign. That's crazy. You feel me? Bullet Club. Whether you good or bad, Bullet Club is an NWO ripoff. You feel me? I like Bullet Club. I like Jay White, Finn Balor, AJ. I like them guys. But it's an NWO ripoff. From the color of the shirt and all that, to the hand signs, all of that. It's an NWO ripoff. From the splitting of the Elite. You feel me? The Bullet Club is an NWO ripoff. So the NWO has had a very, very, very long-lasting impression. Very, very long-lasting. And they was going up against Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. Think of that. You had Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock on one channel. Then you had the NWO on the other channel. At the same time, on the same day. Mondays. That's something to crazy to think about. We will never get that again. Never. Never. We will never get two iconic, not even two wrestling subcultures going head to head at the same time. We will never get that. AEW has never been that big and will never be that big. We will never get that big of two titans going head to head. We will never have that again in wrestling, in my opinion. But all in all, this was a great documentary. I think the other ones they're going to do this season is on Jake the Snake Roberts, Iron Sheik, China, who else? It's some other people. But I don't know if I'm going to do a review on every single one of them, because I already know the China story. I kind of already know the, who else story I know? I kind of already know everybody's story. Besides Jake the Snake, I don't know the Jake the Snake story yet. But everybody else I basically know already. You feel me? But let me see if you like it in the comment section. I'll do it. Like, comment, share, subscribe. We're on the road to 600 subscribers. 600 subscribers. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I'll be back with more.